Welcome to another episode of AutoMundial, the weekly car news and review show where this week we have the latest Jaguar F-Type. Is it really a half-price Aston Martin?
And we take a look at the new hybrid Land Rover Discovery Sport, as well as an electric city car from Volkswagen.
And a small AMG-tuned SUV from Mercedes. That's all coming up. First though,
Bentley's flagship saloon, the Flying Spur, has received a new engine. The four-door limo, which shares a platform with the Continental GT Coupe, is now available with the same 4-litre V8 you can get in the smaller two-door car. The twin turbocharged motor, which has proved to be extremely popular in the Continental, puts out 542 brake horsepower, meaning the big saloon can hit 62 miles per hour from a standstill in 4 seconds flat. The smaller engine also means it's lighter than the more expensive W12 engined car, which Bentley says makes it a more agile proposition for those who like to drive themselves rather than use a chauffeur.
The Volkswagen Up and its sister cars, the Seat Me and Skoda Citigo, have been on sale for years now. And with profit margins on small cars shrinking, until recently their future was in question. VW, though, has continued to develop the car with a fabulous Up GTI and now this, an all-electric version to rival the Renault ZOE. Called the E-Up, it doesn't get an ID name like VW's other new EVs because it doesn't use the brand's new MEB platform. Instead, it still uses a modified combustion engine platform like the old model, but the range has now shot up to 162 miles thanks to its new, denser battery. That's impressive, especially as this is a car that'll likely spend most of its time silently nipping around city centres. The old car could only manage about 120 miles, and that was only if you promised not to use the aircon. Usefully, it can reach 80% charge in an hour with a fast charger, meaning longer journeys should be easily achievable if you decide to venture out of town. Driving the E-Up is the same 61 kilowatt electric motor as before, producing 81 brake horsepower. A handful more than you get in a regular petrol Up. The 0 to 62 time has dropped by half a second to 11.9, although the 81 miles per hour top speed remains unchanged. But what it lacks in speed, it makes up for in equipment. DAB radio and Bluetooth are fitted as standard, along with lane departure warning and automatic air conditioning. In an effort to keep the cost down though, there's no infotainment screen. Instead, you get a smartphone cradle which allows you to use your phone as a sat-nav and make use of the VW Maps and More app. Essentially though, the rest of the car hasn't changed that much. It gets a few extra airbags and some new colour options, and that's about it. But like any Up, it's a great place to be. Visibility throughout is excellent, and all four wheels pushed right out to the corners mean it's fun to drive too. It has adjustable regenerative braking to help recover energy, as well as 2 separate eco driving modes to help eke out as many miles as possible.
But as we know, the little Up doesn't have the small EV market all to itself. The Seat Me Electric shares everything but the badges with the Up, as does the latest battery-powered Skoda Citigo. And there's competition from outside the VW group too. The Renault ZOE may be getting on a bit now, but it has got a fresh new look with LED headlights, a revised grille and updated bumpers. It's a subtle update, but an effective one nonetheless. Inside, the changes are much more obvious thanks to a completely restyled centre console and new infotainment. The upholstery is now made of eco-friendly recycled materials, while many of the old scratchy plastics have been replaced with nicer soft touch bits. Like the E-Up, the Zoe has also had a range boost thanks to a bigger battery. As a result, the range is now seriously impressive for a car of this size, 245 miles if you spec it correctly. There are two powertrain options with either a 106 or 132 brake horsepower. The latter can get the little Zoe from 0 to 62 miles per hour in 9.5 seconds and onto a top speed of 87. And then there is this, the all-new Corsa E. The Opel and Vauxhall Corsa has long been one of Europe's best-selling cars and one of the least interesting. Now though, with its fresh design and Peugeot platform, it's as stylish as any of its rivals, especially the electric version. Stick it eco mode and you can get up to 270 miles from a single charge, while inside it gets a proper infotainment system and countless bits of safety tech.
But while the Zoe and the Corsa are perhaps more impressive and capable cars than the little Volkswagen, they're bigger and more expensive. The E-Up and its VW Group stablemates still occupy a unique segment of the market, one which will hopefully keep the city car alive.
While the company has come a long way from building utilitarian off-roaders for farmers, soldiers and adventurers, Land Rover is still adamant that it builds the best 4x4s by far, as they pave the way in the premium SUV market. But while the new Defender is still first and foremost an off-roader, models wearing Range Rover badges currently outnumber the vaguely humbler offerings, with the Discovery Sport being the entry-level car. With few changes since its launch, the baby Discovery has received a substantial facelift. While styling may remain similar, it now features plenty of Evoque and Velar-inspired details, and an overall more upmarket look. The cabin has had an overhaul too, with Land Rover's latest infotainment system sitting flush in the dash, and a much cleaner design throughout. Like more expensive cars in the brand's lineup, many of the controls are now touch-sensitive, thanks to the second screen in the centre console. The biggest changes, though, are under the skin. The Sport is now available with a whole new range of mild and plug-in hybrid powertrains. Fitted to all but the entry-level front-wheel drive diesel, the tried and tested 48-volt mild hybrid system cuts the engine out when decelerating below 11 miles per hour, saving plenty of fuel and reducing emissions when driving in town. The plug-in version uses a 3-cylinder petrol engine, something previously unheard of in a Land Rover. Badged as a P300e, the PHEV can drive up to 38 miles on electric power and can deliver just over 175 miles per gallon, according to the official WLTP economy figure. While the inclusion of a two-wheel drive version to the lineup will likely rile the purists, the four-wheel drive models continue the Land Rover legacy with the unflappable Terrain Response 2 system that monitors conditions and automatically selects the appropriate settings and driving modes. That's not the only clever tech on offer. Featuring much of the new technology from the new Evoque, the Discovery Sport is likely to remain Land Rover's best-selling model.
It doesn't have the market to itself though. The Volvo XC60 offers restrained style with plenty of kit and luxury. Available with a range of petrol and diesel engines, the top-spec hybrid model also offers blistering performance that can keep up with many current sports cars. Inside, the Volvo is a great example of minimalist design, helping to create an airy and modern cabin. The infotainment is also easier to use than the Discovery Sport's bewildering selection of touchscreens. Unlike the Discovery, however, the Volvo is only available with 5 seats, meaning buyers after 7 should look elsewhere. Then there's the Audi Q5. Sitting in the middle of Audi's vast SUV lineup, the Q5 is a great compromise between size and practicality, with plenty of space in a relatively compact package. Like all current Audis, the interior is superbly finished, with all models coming loaded with gadgets. The build quality throughout is absolutely first class, but like the Volvo, there's no option for a third row of seats. The boot is massive though, and even the rear seats are roomy enough for tall adults. However, while no cars in the class are exactly thrilling to drive, the Q5 misses the mark more than most. While there is a performance model on offer, more humble versions lack feel, and its off-road capabilities are, perhaps unsurprisingly, nowhere near those of the Land Rover.
So is the updated Discovery Sport finally a class leader? Well, the thorough going over has certainly put it up there with our current favourites. It isn't quite as understated as the Volvo or as well built as the Audi, but with all that new tech and its hybrid powertrains, it certainly has what it takes to win new buyers, especially as the cheapest car in the desirable Land Rover range.
Join us again after the break as we check out the updated Jaguar F-Type and the Mercedes-AMG GLB. Coming up, Jaguar's 911 rival. But first,
AMG has been on a bit of a roll recently. The engineers have been getting their hands on everything from supercars to family hatchbacks. And now it's the turn of Mercedes' latest baby SUV, the GLB. Available for now only as an entry-level AMG 35 with no Wild 45 version as yet, the chunky little GLB finally has the power to keep up with rivals from Audi and BMW. It gets a reworked version of the 2-litre turbocharged 4-cylinder from the A35, producing 302 brake horsepower. 0 to 62 takes 5.2 seconds, not bad for a 4-pot SUV. As is often the case with German performance cars, it's limited to 155 miles per hour. Not that you want to go much faster in something with aerodynamic properties of a loaf of bread. The Merc's 4MATIC all-wheel drive system goes through an 8-speed dual-clutch transmission with new drive modes with new names like Slippery, Comfort and Sport Plus, depending on where you want to lay down that power. All of these subtly tweaking the throttle response, gearbox, steering weight and suspension for the ideal performance. The suspension has also been upgraded for reduced body roll, and an optional AMG ride control suspension electronically controls damping at each wheel. Speed-sensitive power steering, 4-piston AMG brakes and standard 19-inch alloys are all included, but the Alfalter-back speed freaks didn't stop there. The exterior has been treated to more aggressive AMG cues like the pugnacious grille and bad boy body kit. It's certainly an interesting look, but one that will no doubt appeal to the nouveau riche target audience. There's also a night package available which gives you bigger wheels and various bits of blacked out trim for those who really want to compensate. As for the interior, it's largely the same as the regular cars, but with a few sporty bits thrown in. You get a flat-bottom sports steering wheel with paddle shifters, touches of carbon fibre on the dash, and a pair of sports seats up front. This can be jazzed up with optional leather packages, but there's plenty in here, such as the standard MBUX infotainment system, to keep anyone happy. For those with big families, there is an option of a third row of seats, but we'd only recommend it for small children.
But what other fast, small SUVs are out there? Well, arguably the class leader is this, the Audi SQ2, serving up a similar dose of performance with some somewhat more conventional styling. The powertrain has been borrowed from the Audi S3 hot hatch, and the ride height has been lowered among various other chassis tweaks. It's not quite as big as the GLB, but it has the same hot hatch sensibilities for the families who want practicality with an extra dollop of speed. Speaking of which, this is a very quick little crossover indeed, beating the Merc to 62 in just 4.8 seconds. It is rather heavy though, and far from what we'd describe as a true driver's car. So in this battle of niche fast small SUVs, it's the Mercedes that just clinches it for us. It's quirky yet practical, and sure to turn heads wherever it goes. Whether the world really needed a fast version of the GLB is unclear, but another AMG model to choose from can't be a bad thing.
The Jaguar F-Type has always been a great-looking car, with a classic sports car shape, a long bonnet up front, 2 seats in the middle, and a short rear end. But with the design starting to get a little long in the tooth, Jaguar has given us a new one, and here it is. More of a heavy facelift than a new model, the 2020 F-Type looks better than ever, with an XE-inspired front end, swapping the old, tall headlights for narrower, horizontal ones. The old bumper bar has gone too, with the number plate now sitting within the new, bigger grille. Either side there are some new, wide air intakes, creating an aggressive look and improving cooling. The clamshell bonnet has also been updated. It's lower and now reaches further towards the front of the car. Inside though, the changes have mainly been focused around improving fit and finish, with gorgeous new materials to help it keep up with its rivals. But it's under the bonnet where we find the biggest differences between this and the old car. Sadly, buyers will no longer be able to revel in the pops and bangs of the charismatic old V6. Instead, having the choice between the entry-level 2-litre 4-cylinder car with 296 brake horsepower or two 5-litre supercharged V8 options with either 444 or 567 brake horsepower. It retains the different drive layouts though, with top-spec cars getting all-wheel drive, with the lower output V8 and 4-cylinder car getting drive sent to the rear wheels. The 2-litre car offers more modest performance and better economy. But it's the bigger V8 cars that we're really interested in. The less powerful V8, the P450, hits 62 miles per hour from rest in 4.5 seconds and tops out at 177 miles per hour, if spec'd correctly. It's available with either rear or all-wheel drive, depending on what you're more likely to use the car for. Of course, we'd recommend keeping it simple and sending all the power to the back for a classic sports car experience. But the option of all-wheel drive keeps it competitive against its main competition, the Porsche 911.
Like the Jaguar, the ever-popular 911 is available with all sorts of layouts and power outputs. As the current range stands, the entry-level Carrera sends 380 brake horsepower to the rear wheels, making it good for 0 to 62 in 4 seconds flat with the optional Sports Chrono Pack. But if you want the security of drive going to all 4 wheels, you need to step up to the Carrera 4. This drops the 0 to 62 time to well below 4 seconds, making it a great match for the most powerful F-Type, the 567 brake horsepower P575. With all that power and grip, the supercharged V8 Jag hits 62 in 3.7 seconds onto a top speed of 186. And whether you go for the coupe or the convertible, the sound is incredible, reminiscent of old Le Mans cars. Perhaps the Jag's best feature though is its price. A rear-wheel drive V8 model will set you back £70,000. That's 12 grand less than an entry-level 911 Carrera and a staggering 50 grand less than this, the Aston Martin Vantage. Like the Jag, the Vantage is a front-engine V8 British sports car with a long bonnet and small cabin. It may have more racing pedigree than the Jag, but to our eye it isn't nearly as good-looking as its cheaper competitor. It is more powerful with 503 brake horsepower from its Mercedes-AMG derived turbocharged engine, and it shaves off about a second from Jag's 0 to 62 time, but these do seem like very similar cars.
The F-Type then is as desirable as it ever was. It looks stunning and packs enough of a punch to mix with much more expensive rivals. It may not be as much of an all-rounder as the Porsche or as upmarket as the Aston, but with those looks, the noise and the price, it's the one we'd go for.
Join us again next week on AutoMundial as we take a look at the newly updated Hyundai i30N.